Okay, so hopefully this audio is okay. It's trying a new setup, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to turn out. So I wanted to just basically run through this NHL document because obviously NHL is a pretty tough sport and we do other hockey leagues and they work pretty well, but NHL is, the real deal. And I wanted to show you what I've been up to um, and how fairly simple it's been so far just to get all of these won't open because the files are too big, but just to get all of the data in one place relatively quickly. So instead of spending maybe like 30 hours to get all of the data, then it's going to be easier to just have an API call, obviously. Most big sports don't have, or I'd say most medium-sized sports don't have access to that unless you pay a company like Sportradar a couple of grand a month. And when you're getting started, obviously that's not what you want to do. But this seems to be a better approach. So I'm just going to talk about how I do it. And then there's going to be a follow-up in the future as this is the main build going forward. So I wanted to do it a little bit more as a case study. So we'll see how it goes. So all I did to start is basically, as usual, go into Claude. This is the second chat, but there's 3 or 4 levels. So the first is just like communicating with the API itself. So again, this is all written by Claude, but this is all, I can give this away because it's not doing anything different. It's just using the API of the actual NHL site, and getting this data took about an hour to get 2 full seasons. So last season and then 23-24. And you can basically set up to get play-by-play as well, which is really, really deep. I think there's about 300 odd play-by-play games. So it's run already, but with all different information around like shot coordinates, zones, shot type, which team it was, the actual player, the player of the recipient, game state information, and then obviously like assists, etc. But everything like face-offs and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to show you what you can get and why it's such a good starting point, even though obviously NHL is pretty sharp in terms of to beat. I think it's a good thing to play around with just because it's so much quicker to get this data into a workable form. So this is what you can get out of it. We have basically all the games from, this was the previous season, but you can get it from any season you want. And then it's built in such a good way because it's obviously coming straight from the source and it's not a custom scrape or anything, that each play-by-play is, so well done. Obviously, if it's just period start, there's not going to be much data, but we have face-off data, we have even giveaway data. So if you were going to build like a team-based model, you could just use this and give away data as well. I would be careful with this just because like the dump puck elements within hockey are a bit different. But then we obviously have our shot data with our coordinates, our timestamps, even our type of shot, zone code. So N is obviously, I'd assume is neutral, but we shall see. If we can get a different example here. N, that's a hit. So yeah, we even have hits as well. We have O, which is obviously offensive zone code, and then there's probably a D as well somewhere. But you can see we have all this information. We have the player codes as well. We don't have much else aside from that. So if you were trying to build a super, super deep NHL model, there's probably not going to be enough here. You'd have to go to a premium paid source or even a commercial source. But that's not what I'm going to be going through in this sort of mini series. I just think it's going to be possible to have a model that does decent in the NHL, even if it's not going to be like the type of ROIs we get for other hockey leagues or other sports, just because the NHL is so much sharper. But I think we can have different situations where we approach it in a way of, situational analysis or the whole information asymmetry thing that we've talked about before. So saying, okay, we're not trying to predict every game correctly because that's just going to be too difficult and the market is going to be pretty close to the correct price anyway. But with opening lines and a decent player-based and team-based model, how close can we get to predicting, say, 10% of games for a large enough edge? That's kind of what we're going for. So picking our spot rather than trying to be like, okay, I want to predict the exact percentage accuracy of every single game. So yeah, this is just kind of like a mini introduction overview. What I tend to like to do is once you have all this data, it's a little bit too in-depth. Like this file is massive. I don't even know how many lines. You can see we're only a fifth of the way through and we're already into the millions. So it's a pretty hefty file. I like to chunk that down with a converter script that basically means all of our data that we've got from previous hockey leagues, we can run those same models on the NHL, which is probably what I'll do in episode 2 and show you how those models perform. I presume they're going to be pretty bad, or at least kind of like negative 2 to 5% ROI or break even-ish, just because those leagues are a lot easier to beat. There's way lower liquidity, way lower volume. People just don't care as much about, the UK Elite League as they do the NHL. So it's going to be 20 times sharper and 20 times harder to beat because of that point. But you can see, just wanted to introduce you to the API, because something that would have taken 50 hours or a few days to do took 1 hour and a bit of research and a bit of back and forth with Claude. And then you just clean up the data however you like, and then we go from there. Okay, cheers.